Alright, so just to give you an example of before, here's my CPU cooler. That is not the stock cooler, but it cools the CPU in the same degree as the stock cooler, just a normal fan cooler. With my new system, it comes with a built-in system monitor program that includes GPU, CPU, and memory utilization. Normally idle temperature is like 50 degrees Celsius, low 50s, something like that. And check it out if you ask it to do something intensive like process a video. Just watch the temperatures here. I'm not going to even finish this. This is just for demonstration. Okay, CPU 98%. And it's not the utilization that's a big deal, because this process does use a lot of CPU power. Watch the temperature go. Shoots right into the 90s. Look at that. It's crazy, huh? We need to fix that. Hey, how you doing? Duff here. Just want to shoot a quick video talking about my latest addition to my computer that I use for video processing and other stuff. When I bought the computer, it came with a stock conventional cooling setup where you just have a fan that's forcing air through the heat sink and pulling heat off of the CPU. And since then, I actually went to an RGB style fan cooler unit to do that kind of stuff. But I discovered as I was doing various things that were CPU intensive that there was a lot of heat that was generated, more so than I would expect from the CPU. When I was doing processes that would near max out the CPU, aka video editing, you would have issues where the temperature would spike as high as like 90 degrees Celsius, which is really, really hot. And when I did some research, this says that my Omen has an i8700 CPU in it. It said that the normal operating temperature can be between 70 and 90 degrees depending on load. But that's hot. It's really, really hot. So I thought I would take the next step and go with a liquid cooled option. So you can see I already have it installed. I was considering doing the step-by-step documentation of the process, but to be honest with you, it was a huge pain in the ass, and I just figured I will give a summary of what was involved with me getting this installed instead. This cooler, I'll have a link in the description below. It's a stock Intel cooler that's can be used in a bunch of different configurations, but I did do some research online and I saw other people had used this cooler in their HP Omen Obelisk desktops, so that's why I went with this model. Okay, so with a liquid cooling setup, there's three major components. You have your cooling unit that goes on the CPU itself. That's piped into a radiator, almost like a car radiator. You have a radiator up here, and then there's a large 120 millimeter fan that pushes air through the radiator and out the top of the case. Now, installing this in the HP Omen was, like I said, a little bit of a pain in the ass because it didn't have mounts that were just specifically designed for this radiator. So I had to kind of use one screw hole that was there, and I had to cut a small opening to connect another screw to secure the radiator up top. Now the issue that I had that I was not expecting, because the instructions that come with this cooler are not fantastic, it's basically just a bunch of pictures, was getting the actual cooling unit on the CPU itself. The frame that holds down the cooler fit the mounts on the system board just fine, but when you would crank down on the knobs to press it against the CPU surface, it would never get tight. And I found out that was because I needed to actually put a different back plate on the back of the system board to make this happen. So putting on the new back plate means removing everything, removing the system board basically. I didn't pull the system board totally out, I just loosened it and got it that I could tilt it up so I could get to the back of the system board, and I was able to put that new mounting plate on, which has shorter standoffs, which in turn allows you to get more tension on the CPU itself. So when I went into it, I thought it was going to be like a half-hour job. It turned into like a 2.5-hour job by the time I was done. But it is in there and it is working well. So I shot some footage before doing this to give you a before and after as far as what the difference is temperature-wise. So now I have my same monitoring software up here, and you'll see that at more or less rest, the temperature of the CPU is in the 40s. Right now it's 43 degrees. With the stock fan, it was right about 50. 50 was as low as you would see it go. So that's not a huge difference. It's a difference, 10-15%. But where the real difference comes in is when you're doing video editing or anything that really hammers the CPU. So let me show you what it looks like after. Okay, we're just gonna pull in any file, and we're just going to, even though this is a completed file, we're just going to start the process to process it again, because that will max out the CPU. Test, finish. Okay, there it goes, it's cranking. Alright, so now the CPU is at 100% utilization, 92. Now when I did this test with the stock cooling option, this temperature for the CPU got as high as like 94 degrees Celsius, I believe, is the hottest that I've seen it get. As you can see, with the cooler in place, we're staying in the 60s. So that is where you really notice the difference, is once the CPU kicks in. The difference in cooling is incredible. Look at that, now it's down to 60. It's actually cranking up its cooling as the CPU utilization goes up, and it's really dramatic. And you're talking about like a 30-degree difference in spikes as far as top temperature with the liquid cooling option. So it's like it's almost a 50% reduction. That's pretty crazy. Alright, so there you go. It's cranking away between 80 and 95%. Temperature is in the low to mid 60s. It's fantastic. And as you can tell, the actual cooler itself, it's not that obtrusive, compared to some liquid cooling systems I've seen where you have like a huge reservoir tank and it seems like a big pain in the ass. You got to put your fluid in yourself. This is a sealed system. You never have to touch it, and it'll just work. It will just keep your CPU cool. And in turn, it's also this huge fan is also cooling the entire case. So the case itself is cooler than it used to be as well. So it's a win-win. All right, so that's all I got for you for now. I just wanted to make a little video about that because I thought that the difference was that dramatic. It really makes a huge difference. Electronics don't like being hot, obviously. So anytime you can knock the top end off of the heat exposure to a component like a CPU, you're doing yourself a big favor. So if you found this video interesting, please give it a big thumbs up. If this is your first time visiting the channel, please consider subscribing. Feel free to leave your comments, suggestions, ideas, and thoughts below, and I will put a link to this cooler in the description below in case you're interested in it. I think it was 80 bucks, 90 bucks, something like that. It wasn't that expensive. So yeah, for the money, I think it's really a nice deal. I hope you guys are having a good weekend, and until next time, bye for now. Hi, baby. Why do you look so guilty?